Once upon a time, stories of fantasy. People suffering with OCD aren't living a fantasy. Even though there are a lot of myths that go around obsessive compulsive disorder, their stories are real. These are stories from the OCD side. Real people, real stories, brought to you by FamilyOCD.com and InvisibleWheelchair.com. We want your story. Go to InvisibleWheelchair.com and contact us to tell us your story here. OCD is real. OCD treatments are real. OCD recovery is real. And so are these stories. I found real inspiration in my guest today for his courage in wanting to be able to share his story for others, to inspire others, to help others. His name is Mike Sizemore. Mike joins me today to tell his story from the OCD side. Having OCD in his family history and being diagnosed at a very early age, Mike has struggled for a long time with obsessive compulsive disorder. Being really crippled by OCD, Mike was able to come to a better place where he now wants to share his story to inspire others. So let's join him in that story now. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you being part of the Invisible Wheelchair, and I welcome you.
Thank you so much, Don.
Well, Mike, I again appreciate the fact that you're willing to tell your story, because, you know, this can be such an inspiration to others to know that they're not alone, that they're not crazy, that, you know, there are other people out there. And so sharing your story makes, I think, for a big deal for this. So I, again, appreciate that. So let's start out with that. If you want to tell me a little bit, or tell me your story. What happened for you? How did you find out? And kind of what happened along the journey?
Well, it's quite a long journey. At this point in my life, I was diagnosed when I was 13 with obsessive compulsive disorder. My grandfather had it at times pretty severely, and I believe maybe before it had a name, my great grandmother also had it. So it does run in the family, and you tend to see that with OCD, that sometimes it does run in the family. Where it started with me was when I was 13, but I think it actually started a little bit before that. I saw when I look back now and I can see some things before that. But I had just gone from elementary school into middle school, and it was a big culture shock from moving from a one-story elementary school to a six-story junior high, where all these schools were coming together, and there were lots of people I hadn't seen, not to mention hormonal changes in the mix, and a big environmental change there. So it was really a good breeding ground for, if there was going to be a problem, it was probably going to show up right then. And so where it really started with me, and I knew that, and a great part of me, like many OCD sufferers know, is that this doesn't make sense, but I can't control what's happening here, but it still doesn't make sense. And there were street gangs in my junior high, you know, and they were students, but they said that they were in street gangs, and I didn't know these people, but I was afraid of these people because I knew about street gangs, I knew what they were and everything, and I saw a lot of gang graffiti, and I knew that they got into fights and that they hurt people and things like that. So I all of a sudden started to become afraid, because not only I didn't know about them, but I knew what I thought they knew, I knew they were capable of, which was, you know, causing a lot of harm and, you know, violence and things like that. So I felt like I had to be like ultra respectful around them, not to ever possibly do anything to upset them. They had slang words that they used to call each other, gang members, like derogatory names, which I won't mention. But then the intrusive thoughts started with, you know, I accidentally thought this bad word about this gang member. Now they're really, if they, what does that mean about me? And then it kind of just grew, like OCD tends to grow. And then it's, well, what if they can read my mind and they know what I'm saying and they know what I'm thinking? And now they're really going to want to get me now. So like, I'm not safe anywhere. And then it was, when I passed by this potential gang member who had his pant leg raised up to show his gang sign or whatever, I mean, did I make some offensive gesture towards this person? And now then they're going to want to get me. So it, and then, this led to a lot of like, I mean, my mind was just going like 1,000 miles an hour, like all the time. There were lots of times when I had to leave school in the middle of the school day, come home, break down, seek reassurance from my parents. Can people read minds? Can people read minds? Obviously they're saying no, people can't. But then, well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know you can't read minds? I mean, you can tell me that all day, but I still don't know. And so it and this eventually led to a hospitalization and a diagnosis of OCD.
Now, did they ever actually get you? Did they ever, abuse you or hurt you for any reason?
Believe it or not, as shocking as it is, no, they never did.
Okay. So they probably weren't as mean as probably you anticipated them, I would imagine.
No, they were probably, if they saw me in the middle of the straits that I was in, might have been more afraid of me than I was of them.
Now, did they call you names or did they classify you in any way?
No, actually, they were pretty didn't really get involved with me. They didn't they weren't really that much of a problem. They were a problem with each other, but not with me.
Okay. So how was well, let's see. It sounds like you had support from your parents and your family.
Yes, definitely. I think that, and they were just an absolute, I mean, they were everything that a parent should be and more to me, and I'm eternally grateful for that. But I think that one of the more confusing things is that the presentations between mine and my grandpa's were so different. That might have been what threw a loop into things, because my grandfather, he was all about, the more classical sanitation, washing hands, and I was more of the, repetitive, intrusive thoughts, checking, reassurance seeking, trying to analyze my thoughts. Why am I having this? What does this mean about me? Does this mean that I'm, trying to get to the root of the thought, in which, with OCD, you can never get to the bottom of it.
No, of course not. They'll just add another layer on if it,
right,
oh, we got
right.
to it, let me give him this.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So what were you doing? What types of compulsions were you doing? And you said about reassurance, I understand that. But were there other kind of compulsions you were doing to try to calm the thoughts?
Yeah, things like, I'd say, like in the beginning, and even, I mean, this is a 20-year span, really, of time. But compulsions I've had over the years, just to be a little more broad, have been definitely the analyzing the thoughts, trying to get to the bottom, that feeling like you can resolve it, but you really can't resolve it. If I only get to this point where I can understand this thought, then everything will be okay. And of course it won't be okay, because you'll never get to the bottom of it. And definitely checking. I went to this spell where I was checking the stoves, checking the my apartment door, to the point where I broke the door handle over time. Needing the just right feeling was always one for me too, like especially on my jobs. Like I can't move on with my task until I get the just right feeling, like everything is calm, I'm at peace with the world, I have a confident feeling, and then I can move on. but
Yeah.
until I get that, I can't move on because it doesn't feel safe. I don't,
Yeah.
you know, um, and
So
yeah,
I'm
things
sorry.
like
Go.
that. No, just things like that. Reassurance was always a really big one. You know, so yeah, definitely the checking, reassurance, analyzing, that sort.
And as you went into more, like you talked about the childhood and school, teenage years. As you went into adulthood, how did it change some? Did it morph differently as you got into like workspace and adult life, dating or whatever? Did you
Oh
find it
yes,
different?
sure, yeah, and I mean, and for anybody out there listening who doesn't know about the different themes and the little, you know, the abbreviations for themes, I mean, there's lots of different ones, but I mean, I mine has just really just gone all over the map over the years. I I went through a period of, they call it relationship OCD when I
Hmm.
was dating, which is, and I had these feelings, but I couldn't put a name to them. It was like, you know, you like this girl that you're with, you know, but how do you know that this is really the one? You know, how do you know that your feelings are really true? And then it was like, but I think they are, but how do you know that they are? I mean,
Hmm.
you know, how does anybody ever know for sure?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so it was, so there was that. There was the whole, I went through a period where it was, you know, I went through a 2 week spell where I was nearly certainly convinced that I had HIV.
Okay.
I went and got a test. Uh, it was like, I was like, emotionally, I was like, basically like already there, already got the diagnosis, ready to give away everything. You know,
Only
oh
got so many more years to go, like a year or
yeah,
so to go.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm not going to be here in 6 months,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and you know, and then I had the whole, you know, just lots of different presentations, but by the time I entered the workforce, it then it got to be more about perfectionism and you know, needing everything to be perfect, very catastrophic thinking. You know, if I don't perform well in my job, then I'm gonna not have an income. I don't even know where I'll be. You know, I everything is gonna go to pot. I'm gonna wind up under a bridge somewhere. You know, with
Okay.
a sign that says, you know, we'll work for food. You know, and you know, and then obviously that was a lot of pressure to live under for a lot of years. There were a couple of jobs that I had to leave. I didn't have to leave them, but the OCD bullied me out of the jobs. I mean, to the point where I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So I have to basically, you know, try to pick up life somewhere else.
Yeah. So, and you say that you've been married now 10 years.
Hmm.
How did you see OCD playing into your relationship being married?
Uh, Thankfully, I mean, thankfully, I really have never got any OCD themes around the marriage itself. And I'm married to a strong woman who who wanted no part of the reassurance compulsions,
Like,
which was actually really good. And
yeah, no,
I gave her a lot of crap for a lot of years because of it, because she wasn't playing the game.
yeah,
But she when I would ask her, you know, things that she would start to pick up on, you know, wait a minute, you know, you're asking me this question, and she just wouldn't give me the answer. And then, you know, and obviously, in, you know, in retrospect, that's absolutely the right thing to do, is to
yeah,
not give the answer.
yeah. Oh, my
But
my daughter used to follow me around. I'd go to the bathroom and she'd be waiting outside the door. And as soon as the minute I opened the door, did you wash your hands? Dad, did you wash your hands? Dad. And I mean, I would like walk away from her and she'd walk around me and just continue to everywhere I went. And it took, and I took everything in my power to not, say, yes, I did. I had to,
I
uh,
feel terrible. I really do, for caregivers or parents or you know, close family members, because I mean, I knew how, just from a first person perspective from that, because um, I can see it. I can kind of see it from both sides. I can see how they can be annoying as all get out to people, because obviously, I mean, nobody likes that. Nobody likes that kind of thing done to them.
No, no.
But I can also see it from a person with lived experience, which is like the emotional state that that person is in when they're doing that it's like a life and death situation.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I almost don't have a choice. I have to ask you, because this is the only way I'm going to be able to continue with my days. If I ask you this question and you give me the right answer, and the right answer has to sit with me the right way.
Yeah, yeah. So, what did it take for you, and what did you do to? Because it sounds like you're in a better place or a good place now. Is that correct?
Thank God, yes.
Yeah. So, what did it take for you? What was your, I guess, turning point, and what did you do to kind of get yourself to that better place?
Well, when I had finally gotten to a breaking point in my life where I knew that there had to be a change, is I knew about exposure and response prevention, and I knew about it for a long time. I was always scared to death to do it because I knew what I would have to do. Uh, so that was why I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's everything, it's anything but easy. But so basically, I was 35, and I had gotten to the point where life was just almost had completely come full circle. I was almost back to the same place where I was when I was 13, when it first happened. Because those years in between 13 and 35 were mostly manageable at times, doing the compulsions, but it slowly got more and more debilitating, and to the point where it was just like I had to do something, and it had to be drastic. And so I met with an ERP therapist, an OCD specialist in Cleveland, and I started doing intensive therapy once a week, which the majority of the therapy takes place outside of the office when you go home.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just brutal. It really was. I mean, I can't sugarcoat it, in all honesty. I mean, it was really, really hard. But but then I started to see these epiphanies for the first time in my life. All the lies that OCD had been telling me over the years, like, you can't handle this. And then I got to the point where I'm like, well, we're just going to have to see if I can or I can't. And lo and behold, as soon as I didn't feel the fire with compulsions, I realized that feeling that says it's never going to go away, it actually goes away.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I started to realize that, wait a minute, I've never not done that. I've never sat through this hell on earth of a feeling and then actually not done anything about it and actually felt it go away. This is a big thing. And little things like that. And then it was like, wait, I think there's something to this. And then at that time I had multiple obsessions, multiple compulsions, and I started to look around and see, I was like, there's these people that they look like they have pretty nice lives, these people that don't have OCD, and they don't have to do what I'm doing. And so, like, I had to definitely find that motivation as I went along. And so it was, and my therapist also, my medication wasn't working when I met with my therapist, and it hadn't been working for probably around 15 years. I was on two different things, and the one over all these years had been decreasing the other one that I needed. So there was a medication interaction there that was basically making the one that I needed not work. And it was my therapist that questioned why I was on that. So there was some consultation with the psychiatrist there also. And I was just to make things a little more difficult, I had to go through a medication withdrawal.
Oh, wow.
In the middle of doing ERP.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
which was it was all done under medical supervision and everything like that. But but thankfully I finally got that experience of like, okay, the medicine's working. I'm doing things I've never done before. Yeah. And it was a big eye-opening experience. And I had just the most fantastic support system. I had employers that understood, and it got to the point where, like, the reason behind life changed, and there was that big relationship shift. Before, where OCD is running the show and you're doing everything you can to dot your I's and cross your T's to make OCD happy, and then try to live a life somewhere in there.
Yeah.
and then it got to this point where it was, I don't have anything to really, I have to throw caution to the wind here, and make this, this big thing, because I don't know what's on the other side. And it got to the point where it was, wait a minute, I have to reshape, I have to change around my values, not to please OCD, but to be the person I want to be, to do the things that I want to do. And it was just an amazing experience, and it continues to be. The people I've met with OCD, they're some of the brightest people, some of the most motivated, compassionate people that are just blindsided by this disorder. And I want to see everybody get to that place.
Yeah. Well, that was, like I said, my first daughter was this spunky, fun-loving, wonderful little girl, and then to watch her turn into almost a zombie at some points, was just, it was tough. So I get that. So I want to kind of start wind this down, but I wanted to ask you, what would your thoughts be for somebody that you ran into that was just finding out about OC? What would you, I don't know, the word's not coming to me, recommend, or what would you say to them to give them some inspiration?
Inspirational, sayings, even,
or just thoughts. What would you tell them that they not need to do, but what they could do to help them?
Challenge yourself. Okay. Challenge what your mind is throwing at you. When it pops up and says, you must do this or this will happen, or you must do this or this might happen and you can't handle that happening, I would say to pay attention to that, and do something that you think a reasonable person would do, and understand that you're never going to be able to find the answer 100% to make yourself feel better. And I would also say, don't judge your experience based on your emotions. You carry your emotions with you, let your emotions do whatever they want to do, and live parallel to your emotions. Live a life you want, and a life that benefits you and everyone around you, and let your emotions be in the background.
Good advice, Mike. Well, Mike, again, to me, you're a very brave person and a strong person for wanting to be able to get your story out. And I really honor you for that, and hope the best for you to continue on your journey to this wonderful life that you're developing here. And thank you for being part of this.
Well, Don, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for making a platform, and for this. OCD doesn't tend to get a lot of attention in the mental health arena in comparison to bipolar, borderline personality, and some more, major mental health challenges. but it doesn't mean that it's not out there, because some of the statistics show that 1 in 40 people that you see will have this. And so the awareness is definitely needed. And I just thank you so much for what you're doing, Don.
All right, mate. Thank you. So that is our story for this podcast. Remember, we want your story told here. If you want to tell us your success story or just want to tell us where you're at, simply go to www.invisiblewheelchair.com, then click on the Tell Us Your Story on the top left side, or just click the Contact Don button on the right side towards the bottom. We want to give you a voice to your story. Until next time, keep working on your story for a happily ever after ending.